Raider Nation, good morning. It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up on today's show, I want to talk about the Raiders news and storylines going into Monday Night Football up against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, obviously, we got kind of that extra days off, got a little bit of extra time to be able to wrap our mind around everything, especially after the Raiders went out and they fired Tom McMahon. But to me, there are still 2-3 big talking points that I want to discuss today. And as the week goes on, we're going to get more updates. We're going to have more conversations. I'm going to get you another video later on today about some changes that I want to see this coaching staff make. And because of that, you're not going to get a lot of that information today. But the three things that I want to look at today: Geno Smith, we got to talk about whether or not he should be the quarterback. We're going to get into the latest going on around JPJ, that injury, because that offensive line scares me. And then where the Raiders are at in the draft. Unfortunately, with 2-7, we are going to talk about the draft a little bit today. But because we got a Week 11 Monday Night Football showdown up against the Dallas Cowboys, and I know I had a lot of people this week going, Mitch, but hey, the Raiders got the extra day. I should also mention it's November 17th. It's Monday Night Football. So because it's a Monday night game, I had a lot of people going, well, Mitch, we get the extra week to be able to prepare. The Dallas Cowboys don't. The problem is the Cowboys also had a bye week, so they also were able to prepare. I'm kind of glad that that's happening, though, because one of my biggest things this season with this coaching staff has been when you have had the exact same amount of time to prepare as your opponent most of the time has kicked this coaching staff's butt. But my first storyline that we have to look at, and we got to continue to discuss here because it's the only way that I think Pete Carroll and this regime is going to get the respect from the players that aren't a part of the Carroll guys. It's, will Geno Smith start at quarterback this week, and will the Raiders decide to make any changes? Listen here. I really don't think that Pete makes a change this week. I really don't know if the Raiders are ever going to make a change at quarterback with Geno Smith because of the relationship that Pete and Geno have together. But my point is this. With some of the comments that Carroll has made this week, with just the way that Geno Smith has played, we at least just have to entertain the conversation. Like, I think if Pete steps up there to that podium like he's done and continues to shut the door on the conversation, like, that's a frustrating thing as a fan. It's a frustrating thing, with players, I'm sure, in that locker room, because we're looking around going, why does everybody else have to compete? But for whatever reason, our starting quarterback doesn't have to compete. Now, I could sit up here and go, they might be doing that because this staff is afraid. They're afraid if they bench Geno and AOC plays better, they're going to have to roll with Aiden. I'm wondering if they bench Geno, could Kenny Pickett play a little bit better? I understand that this team had a plan set in place. And the plan was that Geno Smith was going to be the franchise quarterback for at least a year, maybe two, until we found our future guy. But right now, at 2-7, I think it is crazy to sit up here and say that Geno Smith has to be this team's starting quarterback. Quite frankly, I don't think it's fair to any of the other players out there on the field. So what I want you guys to do right now is I want you to make the call. And I'm going to keep asking this question because every time I drop a video anymore, the only comments that I'm really seeing get popularized are the ones about Geno, the ones about Aiden O'Connell, and the ones about this quarterback situation. So what I want you to do is you make the call. Do you want Geno Smith to start Monday Night Football against the Cowboys? Give me a yes, give me a no. My answer coming up here after this YouTube ad break. The reason why I don't want Geno Smith to start anymore for the Las Vegas Raiders is because I feel like I have seen everything that I need to see. And I can confidently say that I don't believe Geno Smith is a good quarterback now. I don't think Geno Smith is a good leader now. And I know for a fact that he is not going to be the franchise guy. I also sit up here and I'll tell you that I don't think Aiden O'Connell is the franchise guy. I don't think Kenny Pickett is the franchise guy. But if there's one thing that I want to be able to test, I want to be able to test everything else going on with this team. I would like to be able to test, is it a Chip Kelly thing? Or is it a Geno Smith thing? By starting either Kenny Pickett or Aaron O'Connell, you at least test out some of the other problems that this team has. And let's face it, we do have a lot of problems. But if Kenny Pickett and Aiden O'Connell also go out there and they stink the bed, maybe it's a Chip Kelly thing. My point is, in a 2-7 season, the more things that we do to figure out all of our issues, that way going into 2026 we can correct them, That's what I want to do. I don't give a shit if Geno Smith's feelings get hurt. I care about commitment to excellence. I care about this team getting back on track. I care about doing what's right more than being right. I wanted Geno Smith to work. I wanted Chip Kelly to work. They're not working. So as far as I'm concerned, if Raider Nation wants to see something different, I'm on board with giving them something different. And we'll find out how different this team looks Monday Night Football. If you don't already know, hit that subscribe button. I am going to be live, and we're going to be going wild for Monday night. Let's go to the second storyline here. How long is Jackson Powers-Johnson out for? If you didn't see the video that I did yesterday, I revealed a gift that the JPJ family sent me. And again, really, really big shout out to the JPJ family. I'll say this right now. I've been looking for an update on Jackson. I have reached out to as many people as I possibly could have reached out to. All I've been told is it looks worse than what it was expected. I'm not saying that he's going to be out the remainder of the year, but I was told 4 to 8 weeks is kind of the timeline for JPJ, and that's not, and I understand as a Raiders fan, you're probably like 4 to 8 weeks, Mitch, like that's such a big gap. It is a big gap because you got a man that's plus 300 pounds. You're dealing with what looks to be a mild to high ankle sprain with JPJ, and then you also, on top of that, are in a season that, let's face the facts here. It's a lost season, no doubt about it, with 2-7. But the other thing that we got to talk about, because when the Raiders lost Jackson Powers-Johnson in that game against Denver, and Alex Kappa had to come in, and then Dylan Parham ended up going down. I hope that Dylan Parham is going to be able to go, because I'll tell you this right now, Parham and if JPJ are unable to play, the Dallas Cowboys are going to eat us alive. I know that Cowboys defense this season, all the numbers, all the metrics that you look at, they're probably really bad metrics, but I don't think that it's fair for you to look at those numbers, because this is a team that just went out and traded for Quinnen Williams. This is a team that has Kenny Clark and Osa Odigizua. I mean, between Quinnen, Osa, and Kenny Clark, they're going to be going up against potentially a Will Putnam, Jordan Meredith, and Alex Kappa interior offensive line. That sounds like an absolute disaster, and I'm really hoping that this coaching staff has a plan set in place, because we can still learn and we can still get better as an organization, even if we're not winning football games. So because of what I saw last week in that Broncos game and how much a disaster Putnam and Kappa are, I'm going to tell you what offensive line I would want the Raiders to use going up against the Dallas Cowboys. And I don't know if it's the 5 best linemen that we have, but it's the 5 linemen that the Raiders, that the nation need to see what we have in those 5 players, and that's the offensive line that I want to roll with. I'm going to tell you who that is in just a moment. Before I do, though, huge shout out to our sponsor, Prize Picks, because even though the weather's changing, I woke up, walked into work today, it was 35 degrees when I was walking into work. That's absolutely insane. But I love Prize Picks from top to bottom, because even though the weather is changing, when you're right, and it feels good to be right, and I don't know about y'all, I plan on watching a lot, and I mean a lot, of Monday Night Football tonight. And I'm hoping that it's going to end up being a really, really good game, and I hope that it is a good game. But you know what? I don't know if I would watch the game if it wasn't for me putting in a lineup, and you guys can see right now the lineup that we're going to be rolling with. And if you want to download the Prize Picks app today, you can use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Now, the other thing that I love about Prize Picks, though, is that flexibility. Whether you want to power play, whether you want to flex play, it's really totally up to you. And so just keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Coming up here, I promise you the offensive line that I would use up against the Dallas Cowboys. And I understand this. The offensive line that I am talking about using, I also want to see what our coaches can do. Because, yes, the Raiders fired Tom McMahon, and that was the right decision to be able to do. And I think it's the move that we all anticipated, because you need to have a scapegoat. Here's the other thing, though. I want to be able to find out what we have in Chip Kelly, and I already told you that's why I'd make a change at quarterback to more figure out, is it a Geno problem, is it a Chip Kelly problem? But I also want to figure out our offensive line, because our offensive line has been a joke this entire season. And I'm going to look at Brennan Carroll, and I'm going to say, hey, Brennan Carroll, if you can't figure out an offensive line, then I think that we need to consider moving on from you as an offensive line coach. Now, you're going to look at the O-line here, and you're like, man, that's a lot of moving pieces around. At this point, we invested 2 picks in the 3rd round in Charles Grant and Caleb Rogers. If Charles Grant and Caleb Rogers aren't better than Will Putnam and they're not better than Alex Kappa, then they should have never been drafted in the 3rd round. I want John Spytek to answer for some of the draft calls that this team made. I want Pete Carroll to be able to answer for some of the draft calls this team made. I want Brennan Carroll, the offensive line coach, to prove to me that he knows what the hell he is doing. So when you look at that offensive line, I'm moving DJ Glaze to right guard because I think right now he's getting beat up a little bit at right tackle, and I just don't want Kappa to play anymore at that spot. I'm going to move Stone Forsythe over to right tackle because actually between the tackles, Stone's done a good job. Charles Grant's not a right tackle. He was a left tackle, so that's why I'm going to keep him there. I know that this is kind of a strange offensive line, and this offensive line is predicated on Dylan Parham not being able to play and JPJ not being able to play. If Parham's able to go, I will put Dylan Parham in this lineup, and I would probably put him at left guard, and unfortunately then, I don't know what exactly happens with Caleb Rogers. But you know what? I think we all want to see JPJ out there. I don't think that we're going to see JPJ for a few weeks unless a miraculous miracle has happened and new information comes out. I'm hoping that we get some more information today, tomorrow. We'll definitely get more info on Wednesday when that first practice report comes out. But I'll just say this. The fact that I haven't gotten any information usually tells me that it's worse than what initially was reported. But I want JPJ out there on the field because he's the definition of a Raider to me. And then when you see comments made by Jacoby Myers yesterday, it's like, shout out to Jacoby, shout out to JPJ. I want guys that want to be a part of this organization, and spam JPJ down below. Let's go to the final storyline here that I want to talk about. And, should the Raiders consider tanking for a better draft pick? I will continuously say that I do not want the silver and black to tank because I'm a believer we just got to get this thing going in the right direction, and tanking didn't work last season. You might say they didn't tank. I don't know if they did. They might have just been really untalented. Problem is, though, we're really untalented this season. But I want good coaches to want to coach for us. I want good players to want to come play for us. So I will say no on the tank side, but I understand fans that are thinking about it because yesterday the New York Jets ended up getting a win. Yesterday the New Orleans Saints ended up getting a win. And with the 2-7 Raiders where they are at right now, and you kind of just look at strength of schedule, like the Raiders do have a shot for a top 5 pick. The Raiders do have a shot for the number 1 overall pick. And I don't know if the Raiders would draft a QB because of the Geno Smith situation. I will say, you got to consider drafting a quarterback. You also got to consider trading back because of the amount of holes that you have. But as it stands right now, here's what the 2026 NFL draft looks like after Week 10. And then you look at the Raiders' remaining schedule. Like the games I'm looking at, Week 12 against Cleveland, Week 17 against the Giants. Those could be 2 monumental games to decide what the Raiders are doing in the draft. And I really think that those 2 games are going to determine whether the Silver and Black are having a top 5 pick or not. And when you look at some of the quarterbacks that are coming out, when you talk about some of the talent in this draft, I think that there's a lot of really good talent from where the Raiders have needs. Now, sure, the Raiders got a lot of needs out there, no doubt about it. But with a 2-7 season, do you want the Raiders to tank was the question. And I'll ask it because what do you think the Raiders' record is going to be in 2025? We were all hoping for 8, 9, 10 wins. I think that we can kiss that goodbye with a 2-7 record. But looking through that schedule, I think the Raiders can win 2 more games. I don't know where those 2 games are going to run into. Maybe it's Cleveland. Maybe it's the Giants. But at this point, where the Raiders are at, I'm hoping that this team can win 4 to 5 games at the most. So let's go with 4 to 5 wins on the season.